Sorry, guys, I screwed up. I had the wrong Zoom meeting started. We'll give everybody a minute to log in here. Yeah, I was sitting here wondering where everybody was, and I was in the wrong. I had my other class meeting started. I was getting ready to fail you all too. Geez, how lucky I figured it out. All right, I know one person at least that will not be in class, but I think everybody else will be here. I'm going to send out a quick announcement for anybody that logged in and saw that I wasn't here and thought we might not have class. Let me do that here. I think I can copy this link a little bit easier. So give me just a couple of seconds here, guys. Okay, that went out. All right. Let me see who we have and who we don't. Okay, so we're missing 4. All right, we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we're going to kind of continue the thought process of lighting, which we started with the assignment for this week. So we'll look through those, and then we're going to get into a little bit more as far as basic lighting is concerned. And your assignment for next week will be a follow-up to that. So let's take a look. Let's get into the assignments. And there we go. Okay. All right, so the assignment was to photograph something, the same subject under multiple lighting conditions. And so Carly, you're up first. Let's take a look at we'll look at them side by side first. If I can get that to work. Might be better to look at them individually. Let's do that. No. There we go. All right. So somebody's a bit of a Tim Burton fan, I'm guessing. So we've got, is this, is it I didn't recognize what it was at first. It's a set of tarot cards, Tim Burton, Nightmare Before Christmas tarot cards, right? Okay.
Yeah, I got it for a pre-order birthday gift because it's my movie.
When's your birthday?
June 10th.
Oh, June 10th. Okay. Well, mine's June 8th. So we get presents about the same time. So this is, let's look at them both. So this, well, you tell me. It looks to me, I mean, obviously there's a difference in the color balance between the two. Also seeing differences in the direction of lighting. If you look at the shadow coming off of the box or the deck or whatever that is at the top, coming down from left to right, and in this one is coming more from right to left. So tell me what you were using for light sources.
So I used the standard lighting that we have in the dorms, and then I have a lamp that I got from the theater department that Mita wanted to get rid of, and I was like, "Ooh, neat!" And so that was the other light source, and
that was this one.
Light.
The light that you used was this one. This shot.
The second one is the lamp.
The second one
is the overhead lighting from the dorm rooms.
Wow, so that's pretty pretty harsh overhead lighting. So the first thing that I see, the first thing I notice is that even though I see a difference in lighting direction, I also see a difference in white balance or in color. And I don't know, again, I'm not sure what you have access to as far as software to do the white balancing, but it is possible to white balance these shots and to make them match after the fact. And I don't know if I can get, let me see if they will open in, I'm not sure if my preferences are set to allow these to open in the editing software. Let me take a look real quick here. Photoshop, I don't want to open them in Photoshop. Let me look at my preferences real quickly. Just want to be able to open these up and see if we can make them match. Uh-oh, I've got the spinning beach ball of death here. There we go. File handling. Yeah, I've got JPEG disabled. Let's turn that on and then see if I can get these to open. Nope, they're opening in Photoshop again. Let's try it this way. Opening Camera Raw. There we go. Okay, so with these images in Camera Raw, I'm going to try something first that I don't know if it'll work, but I'm going to try selecting both images and just clicking the white balance tool, the eyedropper tool, and clicking on something that's neutral. Which there's a lot that looks pretty neutral here, but I'm just going to grab a little black area up above. And it didn't change anything. Hang on one second. Somebody just came in. We'll figure that out in a second. Let's try these one at a time here.
I mean, I know I'm messing with the white balance settings a little bit on the camera itself when I took the second photo. I don't remember what I had it set to, but I was messing around because the light is orange already by itself. So I was just messing with.
Yeah, and you may find a setting on the camera, a white balance setting on the camera that would work, that would get you, pretty close to whatever the first one was. For some reason, it's not allowing me to select that tool, and it's probably because they are JPEGs, but although, oh, wait, there we go. Now it did. All right, so that's not what I wanted to see, but let's just see what happens when we click. So it did change the white balance. It just didn't set it where I wanted it. So I probably would have to come in and, yeah, it's because of the fact that they're not raw files. They will let me adjust it to some degree, but they're not going to let me get it where I'd really like to get it. There's just not enough editing headroom. I got it a little bit closer maybe than what it was, but still not perfect and still not going to match. But this will show you, yeah, that's the before and after of that shot. So you can see a difference, but so yeah, you can probably find something on the camera that'll get you in the ballpark. And you can also do a custom white balance in camera, which is a real pain in the butt. To do that, you have to take something that is like a gray card or a Target or something. You have to photograph it under the same lighting. And I'm just going to run down this process for you verbally so you know why it's such a pain in the butt. You fill the viewfinder with that gray card and you photograph it under the same lighting as your subject. Then you go into the menus and you go to white balance, you set it to custom, then you find that image and you hit set. And it's just like a long, drawn out, ridiculous process that if you actually just shoot the files as in raw mode and don't even worry about the white balance, you can then bring them into your software like this, bang, click one time and have perfect color. So it's a lot more or a lot less labor intensive to do that, but it does have to be shot. The camera has to be set to record a raw file instead of a JPEG. JPEGs are just not going to give you that kind of flexibility after the fact. I'm not going to get too deep right now into raw files, but I'm going to tell you one thing about them, and that is that a JPEG file, the way a file is designed, a way a digital file is designed, and I think I may have mentioned this once before. It's basically three color channels, a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. And the way your camera works, and this is really kind of funky, the sensor in your camera, each pixel in your sensor only records one of those three. It'll record red, green, or blue. Our eyes are way more sensitive to the green spectrum. So there's actually twice as many green pixels on your sensor as there are red and blue. Now, here's where it gets weird. So you need all three in order to make a color image. So the camera uses a process called interpolation. And basically, let's say the pixel that we look at is a red pixel. It records that red with a red filter. It records that value. And then it looks at the surrounding green and blue pixels and says, well, this is what we guess the green and blue should look like that goes with that red one. And it literally makes up 2/3 of your image. It interpolates it or makes it up from scratch based on the values of the other pixels. So the camera actually only records 1/3 of the information that you get in a finished file, and it sort of makes up the rest. With 256 levels of gray in each one of those color channels, like for example, the red channel, each pixel can record up to 256 or any one of 256 levels. Each green pixel can record up to 256 levels, and each blue pixel, the same thing. When you multiply those three numbers together, 256 by 256 by 256, you come up with the number of potential colors that each pixel can be. And that number is actually 16.7 million. So if you do the math, 256 times 256 times 256, or 256, what is that, cubed, I guess? That's actually 16.7 million. And that sounds like a lot of color, right? It sounds like that is a big box of crayons. Like you could really get a lot of color out of that. The problem is that our eyes are actually really, really good at picking up color detail. And 16.7 million is really good as long as we don't mess with it. Once we start messing with it, once we start changing color and density, that 16.7 million shrinks dramatically. And that's where you start to see problems, blocking up in shadows, banding in a sky, or things like that. Now, by contrast, and this is the point I wanted to make, a raw file, each pixel is capable of recording not 16.7 million colors, but over 68 billion colors. So that's a big difference, 16 million to 68 billion. And that's one of the reasons for selecting raw over a JPEG, because you just have so much more data, so much more information that when you go in to do your editing on that raw file, you can make all sorts of adjustments and you'll never see issues like you would with a JPEG. So I kind of digressed a little bit, but again, when something comes up that reminds me of something that I want you guys to know, I may stop and go through it, and that's a real important thing to understand. So in the meantime, we're just going to cancel out of this. I'm not going to save these changes. I'm not sure if you were seeing those anyway. Oh yeah, I was still in Bridge, so you should have. Let me cancel this. Cancel, yes. Okay, so that takes us back to your original files. So yeah, I'm not sure that you would have, not sure you would have been able with the camera settings to get these, as perfect as they should have been. But clearly, when you look at the blacks here, and I'm assuming this one's probably a little more natural, like because the blacks look very neutral here, and
Yeah.
and they look pretty warm here. So yeah, this is the one that's off a little bit. Um, but yeah, the idea was what I was looking for. I wanted to see what challenges you face by changing light sources, among other things. Let's look at your other one here. So this is does your
There are decorations in my room. The skeleton turtle was a gift from my boyfriend from Spirit of Halloween because I love Halloween. And then we named Shelly after Mary Shelley, and then the other turtle was one a gift my friend got me, and so we named it Frank after Frankenstein. Had them in my room, and I was like, oh, interesting. And then the glass is just a stemless wine glass that I got for decoration.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So yeah, so the things that you find around the house or in your room sometimes make the best subjects. Let me look at both of your images here. So
It's the same
clearly,
lighting. The first one is the overhead lighting of the dorm, and then the second one is with the lamp. The lamp is actually closer because it's on top of my desk, so it was closer to the turtles than it was like the cards.
and you get a little bit of a visual clue by looking at the reflections in the glass and seeing that looks more like an overhead light. That looks more like, this yellow tint coming from some other light. So obviously we have some issues with this image. Does anybody want to comment? Actually, they both have some slight issues, but this one probably more. Anybody want to
The
comment on
second
what it
one,
is?
her ISO is up higher, so it's a little bit fuzzier.
Yeah, the noise. Let's see. Yeah, the ISO is 25,600. So that's up, and it probably had to be because that light is not very intense, I'm guessing. Because yeah, your shutter speed was at 100th and your f-stop was 4.5. So you didn't really have a whole lot of leeway there. You didn't have much choice other than to raise that ISO. And I don't know if the ISO goes any higher than that. But the image
Not on
is
my camera.
okay. So you were just at the extreme limits of what you could record, and that's why the image is a little bit underexposed. You just
Yeah.
didn't have enough more. You would need a brighter light basically to make that work. The other thing is that your point of focus, I think, I'm really looking like the head of the turtle is definitely out of focus. Although I'm not really seeing a point on the turtle that is sharp in focus. So I think we just missed the focus point on there somewhere. But I do like the names and the reasons behind the names. I think that's pretty clever. And then let's go back to these for a second. Yeah, clearly this is the better, and I like, like I said, the idea, but photographically, your tarot card shot is a better image. Let me get this. And these images this week are not going to be probably as creative as some other weeks are, but we're still going to take a look at them that way. Um, yeah, I was actually in what was the Spirit Halloween store yesterday getting my COVID vaccinations. Anybody else had their vaccinations yet or gotten started yet? No?
Now we're too young for that right now.
Yeah, they're
Probably
not
get them
gonna.
around June.
Well, I hope you guys get them sooner than that. I just lost my card. Um, because I would definitely like to do some face-to-face before the semester's over. And I think that's probably, it's not a prerequisite, but it would certainly help. So, um, yeah, I was a little worried. I've heard a lot of horror stories about people getting the shots and having all sorts of side effects and bad reactions. Honest to God, I didn't feel the needle and I haven't had a single side effect, like not even a sore arm, nothing. It was just,
Was that your first shot or your second one?
yeah, I know the second one's worse. But yeah, that was the first one. I get the second one a month from now. So a month from now, if I don't show up at all for class, you'll know why. Hopefully, I'll have enough energy to at least type a message. And I do have some classes pre-recorded, so that if anything like that ever happens, or if I'm out of town or whatever, we'll still have something to share with you guys. It just you won't necessarily have to watch it right, at class time or whatever. So anyway, let's move on. Hannah's up next. And so Hannah went up to the dam and got nice and cold, it looks like.
Yeah, it did.
So that's your daytime shot and then your nighttime shot. So let me look at your metadata because I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's a quarter of a second. F5.6 at ISO 800. So what could she have done? Because we can see some motion here. Obviously, we see some motion in the water or in the lights from camera shake. What could she have done to raise her shutter speed to make it a little bit faster? Anybody? And Hannah, you can answer.
Her ISO could have gone up if her camera was able to do it, but
yeah,
I don't really know anything else.
Chances are it could have. 800 is kind of a low ISO for this type of a shot. Yeah, it looks like a Canon EOS, so it would have gone higher than that. I would have probably taken this up at least a couple of stops to maybe ISO 3200, maybe even try 64. Yes, it would have introduced a little bit of noise into the image, the way the way Carly's image did. But two things would have happened. The image would have been a little bit brighter because it's a little bit underexposed. And two, we wouldn't have had as much movement in the camera. At a quarter second, with almost any lens, it's going to be almost impossible to hold that steady.
What about her aperture? Couldn't that have gone a little bit lower?
Possibly. It depends on the lens. F5.6 is a maximum aperture on a lot of lenses. But if it did, like my lenses all go down to 2.8. So yeah, that would have been an option for me. I would have had 2 full stops to go down, but it just depends on the lens. And sometimes it gives me that information. Let's see if it does. It's an 18 to 55 millimeter. Yeah, actually no, it depends on the zoom, how she was zoomed. Yeah, she was at 53 millimeters of 55. So the aperture on her lens is it goes from f3.5 at 18 millimeters to f5.6 at 55 millimeters. And since she was at 53 millimeters, the 5.6 was maximum. It wouldn't have gone any wider. But so the ISO would have been, that's sort of like your wild card, your ISO. If your lens can't open up anymore and you need that shutter speed to be faster, you use the ISO and raise that up. And what that would have done, if the ISO had gone from 800 to 32, for example, which is 2 stops of light, because 800 to 1600 is one, 1600 to 3200 is another one. That would have taken the shutter speed from a quarter of a second, then to an eighth of a second and a 15th of a second. So a 15th of a second, even though it's still pretty slow, would possibly been fast enough to hand hold at 55 millimeters. But even still, I kind of like the image. I mean, I don't mind light sources that do this. The red lights on the far bank are a little bit of a distraction for that, but I kind of like the little curly cues on the dam. And And then the overall cast of the image as well is in twilight or at dusk or whatever gives you this. Did you, surely you didn't sit there and wait. You went back after it got darker, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that would have been, I mean, it's possible to do. You can get there and like right as it starts to get dark, and maybe within 30 minutes you'll have enough of a change and get that shot. But it looked to me like there was a good bit more difference in time. It should tell me that as well. Yeah, I know obviously your camera's time, your camera's clock is not synchronized, or it's not set, because this says it was taken at 2:35 a.m. I doubt that was the case.
Yeah, it was PM. So
Yeah, and then the other one is 6:11, so almost 4 hours later, 3.5 hours later, and that's the way that works. I was shooting an image at a beach once. I wanted a sunrise image. Now this was talk about Stone Age. I was shooting film, and we got there before sunrise, actually before it even started to get light, and set the shot up. And because it was film and we didn't have we didn't have an LCD to look at, we were just guessing with exposure on film. We started shooting at a particular time, and then I would shoot an image about every 30 seconds for probably 20 minutes. And eventually, when the film was processed and the prints came back, we picked the one that was the best exposure it gave us the best color basically for that time of day. But that's a pain in the butt. Boy, it's so much nicer now to be able to have digital cameras and have that immediate feedback. All right, so congratulations, Hannah, on braving the cold and making 2 trips to do that. All right, Jaden, we've got, now it says Doggo without flash and Doggo with flash. Is Doggo is it actually the dog's name, or is that just a title?
That's just a title.
Just a title. What is
His
your
name
dog?
is Marvin.
What is it?
Marvin.
Marvin. Okay.
I didn't name it. The shelter.
The shelter did. Okay.
He looks like a Marvin.
He kind of does. He really kind of does. My brother had a dog named Dog, and everybody thought it was a French name, and it's actually Dog, dog, Dog. So this is Marvin without flash, and this is Marvin with flash. Now, same thing as what we saw on Carly's shot, your with flash shot, which is really kind of unusual. This one being the one that's a little bit out of focus. Usually the flash helps with that focus. It fires a beam prior to actually taking the shot and adjusts exposure and focus. I'm not sure, he may have been moving or something. That might have been what happened. Good timing on the catch with the tongue, though. And then this one, he's really, even though his snout is out of focus because of the distance, his eyes are really sharp. And that's obviously where you want that to be. And wow, that's a slow shot to get that sharp. That was a 1/5 of a second. And you still got it really sharp. That's a pretty good handheld job right there.
We held a tree above him. That's how I got to the stand. So still.
But you didn't have, the camera wasn't on a tripod or anything, was it?
No.
Yeah. So to hand hold that at a 1/5 of a second, that's pretty good. And then the flash shot is a 60th of a second, and it's the one that's a little bit out. They're backwards. They ought to be the other way around. But that's a pretty good shot of that dog. Of your dog. Again, even though the snout's out of focus, that's not something that is a huge distraction, because we always subconsciously, we're going to go to the eyes. We're going to look at the eyes. So even though I like the tongue, the cute tongue, I think the being a little out of focus and the lighting itself, I kind of like this image better. And let me make a comment to you guys about lighting this way. Now, the flash that you used, Jaden, was it a pop-up flash from the camera, or was it a separate flash that you put on the camera?
It was the pop-up one.
Yeah, so you don't have a choice there. It's going to come up and fire right from that position. But just so you guys know, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the second half of the class. Typically the worst lighting as far as creativity is concerned that you can do is on camera light, and or any light that comes from the camera position. Same thing would be if you had a window behind you. You know, if you're standing and photographing what's in front of you and there's a window behind you, that creates what's called very flat light. It doesn't allow us to get a lot of dimension. We have a little bit here because of the fact that the pop-up flash is a little bit above the lens. And so we can see a little shadow below his chin, which gives us a little bit of a visual clue as to the fact that, you know, we've got 3 dimensions. But typically the further away you get that light source from your camera, and again, with a pop-up flash, you can't, but the further away you get it, the more dramatic and the better your lighting, the better your image is going to be as far as drama is concerned, as far as interest and impact and things like that. On-camera flash creates a very, very flat light, and it's kind of harsh as well because it's very, it's a hard light source. So if this had been a flash that you put on the camera, you can actually, I don't have one sitting right here. You can buy this little set of a trigger and a transmitter. They're really cheap. I think I bought a pair for like $29 on Amazon. I've got probably a dozen of them. And one mounts on the hot shoe of the camera. The other one mounts on the bottom of the flash. And then you can put that flash wherever you want. And when you fire the camera, the flash fires as well. So it's a really cool thing to have as far as being able to adjust your lighting. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about lighting and how to do certain things with that in the second half of the class. All right, did I put that in there? Yes, I did. All right, Caleb's up next. Caleb did trees. Now they're not exactly the same trees, are they? Are they, it looks like a different location. Am I right?
It's the same location, but different angle.
Different angle. Okay. So it's really cool. I kind of like both of these shots. I really like the overly cool tones in this one. It makes it feel like winter, which I really hate. I mean, I love the image. I hate winter. But you picked a good time of day to do that and to be able to get that look. And then this one is it's another really cool shot because it's a good sunset. It's a good exposure of it. And again, a really good choice of time of day because there's detail in the foreground. It hasn't gone all black on it. It hasn't gone completely dark. So both of these are done really well technically. This one could really, like if you, as a raw file, taking this into, if it had been a raw file, taking it into the raw file processor in Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever, man, this thing could really sing. Like you could really bring out some detail in that foreground, make that sky pop even more. That's where something like that really, really, you know, because you've got the detail there. I can see it in the image. But wow, what a shot it would have made to do that. But I like both of these. I'm not sure what your favorite is.
I like the one without the snow.
Without the snow. I do like that shot. I do think, like I said, that it has that feel to it, which, you know, again, we're always looking for stories and we look at an image and what's the story here. I like the fact that the building behind is a little mysterious, you know, kind of makes you wonder, hey, what's back there? Why can't we really make out what it is? What's going on in that building? Is that the subject or is it the trees? You know, there's all these questions, but for sheer impact, yeah, this is a pretty cool shot. It's a good sunset. The only criticism that I would give you, Caleb, is always, and it's tough because of what you had in your foreground, but typically it's not a good idea to run your horizon line directly through the center of the image. You typically want to move that either a little bit higher or a little bit lower. In this case, I think I would have actually moved it higher, maybe right to the tops of the trees, because if you look at that sky, once you get out of that warm color area and into the cool, it doesn't really change. So there's really not anything different up there, but I'm betting that maybe in the foreground there might have been more interest down there than there was in that sky, because we can see everything we need to see up there. But yeah, good. Let me just see. Yeah, again, I don't have.
Yeah, that one. That one was on my iPhone.
Yeah, you see the difference in the format. Neither one of them have any metadata attached, but yeah, I can see the difference in the elongated format. All right, so that's the one we're going with. All right. Oh, the other thing. Yeah, I don't think it has. Yeah, it just has the date. It's funny with the dates that I am seeing. It's like everybody went out and shot yesterday. They're like, oh crap, we got class tomorrow. Got to shoot something. All right. Well, Brooke is next. Let's get into that. This one's interesting. I like this one. So I'm going to do your bottom shot first and have you tell me what you. So we have warm light. Is it, are you calling him Dino or Dino?
Dino.
Dino. Warm light Dino and neon Dino. So what were your light sources?
I turned all the lights off in my room and then turned on my LED lights. That one is orange, and then the top one is like the deepest blue I could possibly get.
Oh, from the LED lights. Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been fighting with LED lights lately. I've got them all over my house. I've got them in my TV stand, behind my TV, under my cabinets in the kitchen, and my bedroom now. I have to wear a mask to sleep. I have so many LED lights in there, and they keep like as soon as I get them in a hard to reach area, half the string goes out. I hate that. But they are pretty cool to play with, and especially the ones that have like if you can run them from your phone and change the colors on your phone and stuff, that's pretty cool. So both of them were using the LED lights, but just different colors, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting take on it. Not what I had in mind exactly when I gave you the assignment, but I like the interpretation of it. I really like this one. I think that one's pretty cool. This one's a little more, it looks a little more ordinary, I guess I would say.
I don't know why it got so crunchy.
Crunchy? What do you mean by crunchy?
Like it just looks really, I don't know, weird. Like it doesn't look sharp. I don't really know why it happened.
Well, let's see. You're looking at the metadata here. It is an f1.8. What did you shoot this with?
It was on my phone.
Oh, it is a phone. Okay, that's
Yeah.
why it's 1.8. Okay. Yeah, so you don't have control over any of your settings using that. So
Mhm.
I'm just looking to see the difference. So this one is a slower shutter. It also has an exposure compensation built in, which is really kind of unusual. Not much of one. It's a point plus 0.09. Shutter speed and ISO, they're different, but they're close.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why this one has a little, and it may just be because of the colors, the way they flatten out a little bit.
Yeah.
But this one is definitely a little more interesting. You all have some strange things in your rooms, which I think is pretty normal from what I've seen the last couple of years. All right, but I do like your blue one. I think that one, again, there's a couple things going on here color-wise. We have some repetition between the blanket that he's sitting on and what are those things hanging there, by the way?
Oh, that's my my worm curtain, worm on a string. Remember those little things? They had like the fishing line attached and they were like magic.
Somehow I missed that.
Mm.
I that whole part of my life it never happened. These are new to me. I haven't seen these before. Worms on a string. Okay, interesting. Well, anyway, the way the colors of the two green ones are repeated in the pattern from the one down here, and actually, if you take that orange one out, you have a very almost monochromatic There's color there, but it's, the two colors that are both on the cool side. And then you've got this orange that's like bang, just like staring you in the face there. And warm colors tend to protrude, whereas cool colors recede. So that orange it pops even more than that. So yeah, overall, it's just kind of an interesting shot. So good idea with what you did.
Thank you.
All right, so Max, let's see, I want to make sure I get the right images here. So you got 3 different images. So we've got a daytime image and then a nighttime image.
Yeah, this is main hall and the student union, if you
Gotcha.
couldn't tell.
Yep, I figured that part out. So I'm just looking, actually, let me see if I can put them both together.
They were in order of like day night whenever I put them in the folder, but they may have gotten messed up a little bit.
So it depends on the sort function that I have set in my bridge. That's how they come up. So I can sort them, by file name or by date created or something like that. But they're not gonna sort exactly probably the way you had them. So we have to look at them a little differently. Let me get this out of the way so I can see both images. There we go. Slight differences very slight well, yeah, really very slight. You've got almost exactly the same shot. Maybe a little bit of sidewalk on the one on the right that you don't have on the left, but that's about it. Pretty much.
Yeah, the one on the left, the darker one is from like a lower angle, I think. Like I was down lower than the one on the right.
Kind of looks, that makes sense. Let me look at the next 2 here. Where is that one? There. Nope, wrong image. Where's the nighttime? There we go. So I'm going to look at all 3 of these before I give any comments or ask for any comments. And let's look at the last one then. All right, so I'm seeing basically the same thing. First of all, I mean, I like the idea. I like what you did. I like the fact that you went back and mirrored the 3 shots sort of the way, who was it that went to, was it, who went to the dam? I already lost that, sorry. Same idea though, shoot it early in the day and then go back later. Can anybody give a recommendation for how the nighttime shots might have been a little more interesting? Nobody?
You could like bump up the ISO because it's a little blurry, or mess with the aperture.
So I don't think either one of those would probably have, so the ISO, the exposure is right. The exposure is correct on them. Like if I look at the clock tower here, if he had overexposed that a little more or underexposed it, it wouldn't have been right. I think this one is a good average for exposure because of all the snow in the foreground. And pretty much the same thing here. If we go any brighter than that, then we're just going to really blow out any lights that are there. The only thing that, and it's a simple thing. Let me look at the metadata for just a second. All right, so it gives me a date, but not a time, and that's the clue. Let me look at the daytime version of this, or any of them actually.
My thing on my camera is an hour off, by the way, if it does say a time, because of daylight savings or whatever it was, and I just never changed it.
Yeah, I'm just seeing date, but not time. Well, that one, no, that was a modification date. Yeah, I'm not seeing the date. All right, so what I would have done, and there's nothing that you can do with the photos the way they are, but I don't know what, I was looking to find out what time these were shot. And that's the key right there. I think had you done these at dusk and gotten some detail in the sky, not just in the sky, but if you look like, for example, at this one, it would have given you more detail in that building. There would have been enough ambient light to let the light balance between the warm light coming out and the cool light outside, giving you a little bit more look at the building. And then this one, yeah, pretty much the same thing. We would have had sky in this. We would have had foreground, a little more foreground detail, a little more building detail. And then the only other thing I would have, and I know why you did this. I do this a lot where I'll do something in two parts. And after I do the second part, I'm like, crap, I should have done that part first because I see a problem that I would have seen if I had done this first. And the problem is what? What's the biggest distraction in this image?
Is it the light on the left?
Yeah. And since you did the daylight shots first, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So when you look at it here, that light's not a distraction. And then you go back and you're like, oh crap, didn't think about that. So yeah, it would have, I think probably if you had done the nighttime shots first, you would have seen that, maybe change the angle a little bit to take that out of the shot. But more than anything, again, it would have helped it a lot, even with that light where it is, to be just early enough in that evening twilight time to let the exposure balance a little better between the inside, the outside, the sky, and all of that. Really good idea as far as how you handled it and what you did with what you had to work with. But that would have really, I think that would have made those nighttime images would have made them sing.
I had originally planned on going out at dusk, but I kind of got distracted playing games with my friends, so I kind of didn't make that.
Well, at least you're honest.
Yeah, and this was yesterday, so that I had no other dusk to go off of. So
right, yeah.
Maybe I should start a little earlier in the week for this next assignment.
Yeah, so that's always it's always a recommendation because. And I know, I know what I'm dealing with here. I know that you guys have schedules that are probably pretty crazy. Mine is too. And we tend to work better under pressure and work with deadlines and things like that. And we all procrastinate. We all put things off. But I do know in the past when I've seen people who have turned in really spectacular work and we start talking about it, I find out that they went out early in the week, shot something, then had an idea later to refine that and went back and did it again. And that's what made it a whole lot better. Like, for example, this image, and you could probably change this one as well after the fact, but compositionally, I probably would have moved that tower, move that clock tower a little bit off. Let me open that just for a second to show you what I'm talking about. Let me stop sharing and share this screen. Actually, before I do that, there. All right, so you guys now seeing this in Photoshop, I think, correct? I hope. All right, so I'm going to crop this down. Let me clear the crop that's in there. Turn snapping on so that I don't have to work so hard. And I'm just going to play with this. First thing I'm going to do is rotate it a little bit just to bring some of those lines a little more. And these are, the parts of the building are going to run uphill no matter what. It's the clock tower that I'm straightening a little bit. And then from there, this whole side, the whole left side of the image, again, there's not a lot going on over there. We can lose that and we can put that clock tower right on one of those impact points. And now suddenly we have a more dynamic image as far as composition is concerned. Let me zoom this out and we'll go back and forth between the two. So right in the center like that and a little bit off kilter is, because I know what you were thinking about satisfying the assignment as far as lighting, but we tend to let some of the other things go. And what we want to do throughout this semester is build every week. Like, even though we might concentrate like on lighting this week, let's not forget some of the other things that we've learned prior to that. The next few weeks, we're going to start getting into composition. And I want you to combine those compositional techniques with the lighting and with the technical stuff and all of that. But yeah, I do think that's probably a much better image, because I just look at that left side and I'm like, why is it there? Here we have a little more balance in that image. Anyway, so I'm throwing a lot of barbs at you here that just don't take it personally. I'm just giving some constructive criticism. I can't talk today.
I like the feedback because it'll only make me better, hopefully.
So as you look at all 6 of these images, is there one of them that you like better than the rest? To me, they're all pretty equal.
I mean, yeah, I don't really like any of them that much, but
they weren't really designed to be impactful. They were designed to
satisfy the project.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's up to you, really. I'll put it up to you.
Well, I do, even though I think that image needs cropped, I still like that probably the best because it's simple. It's a little simpler. I like when we lose distractions and simplify an image a little bit more. So that's probably the one that I would pick out of there. All right. So again, thanks for the effort, at least, and going back and doing that, especially yesterday. All right, so Meech is up next. We've got 3, and there was some text that came along with this, which I did read. So 3 different shots from the Highlands. And let me scroll through those. We have a daylight shot of the theaters, one nighttime shot, actually 2 different nighttime shots of the theaters.
Yeah, sometimes the theater is lit up, like it's open, and I'll be across the street at work and I would just see like this bunch of bright lights and the whole thing going in the distance. So I was hoping to catch it again, but it hasn't been lit up like that in some time. Like the marquee would be going and like it would have like the flashing lights and all that. And then like the sports complex that's next to it, like sometimes they'll have like football tournaments, like the flag stuff. So they'll have like their outside stadium lights on. So that's what I was hoping to like really catch, but yeah, they haven't really been up like they used to be in the past few weeks. You still
have 2 completely different looks and colors and everything of the building, and then the daylight shot on top of that. Where do you work up there?
TJ Maxx.
Oh, okay. TJ, you work at TJ Maxx?
I do, yes. I'm there almost all the time.
My ex-wife works there too. Cheryl Campbell. Do you know her?
No.
Cheryl.
Oh, yeah. I never knew her last name.
Yeah, that's my ex-wife. we get along great. Don't worry. You can talk about me with her. She won't.
Small world.
Yeah. She got over a pretty nasty bout of COVID. I don't know if you knew that or not, but she's still not quite over it. It really kicked her in the butt. So anyway, back to the pictures. Yeah, I like the fact that we've got a couple different looks. I like this one. To me is a little bit, it's a little underexposed overall, even though I like the colors in it better. This one is a little better exposure, but I'm curious about your composition. So we've got, Hannock must keep getting knocked out here. Let me see what's going on here.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, that was probably just also on the part of like, I know I wanted to like really capture just like the building and like just like the different aspects, but like, I don't know, my mind is going, I don't know, like 100 miles a minute. So like, I probably just like didn't really pay attention to like, hey, like keep like the same kind of like consistency with taking the shot. But like, yeah, I definitely was trying to give myself options. Like,
so I would just, the comment that I would make to you about this image is, and we've made the comment about a couple of images already, the shot here, the interesting part of the shot really is this middle part. It's the building, it's a little bit of the snow in the foreground, all of the sky, which is literally half of the image above, no interest there. The parking lot down below, especially the lines in the parking lot, not really a lot of interest there. Really all it would have taken would have been just flip the camera or the phone, whatever, to, into horizontal mode and eliminate all that. And it's just something I want you to keep in mind as you go through. Things have more impact to us when we don't have either distractions, number one, or not that negative space is a bad thing, but it has to be used for intent instead of just having a lot of dead space in an image. So when you can eliminate a lot of that, you get a much more dynamic shot. I think I would have really liked this one. And again, it's just, you don't have control over the settings on a phone, but man, if again, maybe just a little bit earlier to get a little more detail in the foreground and the sky, and then balance it against the lighting on that might have been kind of cool. Not sure, but I still think this one is your best image exposure wise.
Yeah.
It just has a little, the smallest issue is just the composition. That's all. But again, so a lot of you did the outside daylight. My dog is barking like crazy, and I don't know if he needs to go out. I tell you what, it's 5 o'clock. Let's take a little 10-minute break. Let me go find out what's going. Let's make it 15. Let's come back at 5:15. Because that way, not only does the dog get to use the bathroom, maybe I can too, and you can, and we'll come back at 5:15. We'll finish up the images, and then we'll go into the second half. Let me get out of this. Stop that. Okay. All right, just about back to where we need to be here. My dog did not have to go out. He had locked himself in the bathroom. There's some robes on the back of the bathroom door that have belts. He loves belts. He likes anything that he can chew on or pull. And he was jumping up on the back of the bathroom door to try to get at the belts, and he closed the door and was just going crazy in there. So I thought I had a smart dog. I'm not sure I do. Where are we here? Hannah, you keep getting bumped off somehow.
Yeah, I don't know how.
That's okay. It's no problem. I mean, I see it every time. All right, all right, so we're going to get back into pick up where we left off here. Let me just make sure we're still missing. There we go. I was just going to say we're still missing one, and there it was. All right, so let me start sharing this again. And share. Okay. Did I put that one in there? Let me see. Yes, I did. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so we're up to speed here. So Ross is up next. And oh, for some reason, I may not have seen these yet. I did download a couple of them right after I got home today, and I thought I'd look through them all, but I must have missed a couple. So yeah, so we've got kind of a similar idea here. It looks like out. Is this your dorm room, Russ?
Yes, it is.
Had a feeling. So daylight and nighttime. So you probably already know what I'm going to say, right? It's pretty much the same comment that I've had for most of the outdoor shots that we've done different times a day. And it's all about just picking the right time of day. And this is not, your foreground looks great. The background, the face of the building and the sky could have a little more detail. And I think that probably would just have been, moving it a little bit earlier in the day would have done that for you. And it probably, the other thing it does is it balances the exposure throughout. Like this tree in the foreground here that is, obviously lit by, some type of light. It tends to take over the image a little bit. And then that window dead center in the background there, which is so bright as well, it has a tendency, if you go a little bit earlier, to balance all of that out. It darkens those areas a little bit and lightens other areas. And it's a tricky thing to get right. It's a tricky thing to figure out when is the best time of day. But just, be aware typically that there should be some detail left in the sky, visually. And sometimes it's a little earlier than you think. Sometimes it will photograph a little darker than it actually is.
And then this one was taken before the snow. I wasn't able to capture as well as Caleb, but that's kind of what I was going for. I got too late with it. I kind of started this a little bit too late, to the point that the snow was on the ground from this week. But I think it would have looked cooler if I could still see grass.
I mean, the snow it does act as a nice, it picks up the light well, and it creates its own reflector basically. So I like having a lot of snow on the ground, but yeah, I see there is a slight difference, but overall, I think that would have just made a huge difference, is just to go a little bit earlier in the day. and balance that light out. And I'm trying to think of something that I can show you off the top of my head. It's not coming to me, but I know I've got some images. Well, actually I do. If I can just figure out where it is. Let me look real quick. There's one that I shot for the Hampton Inn that they've been using. They have some banners in the, it's not there. Not sure what drive it's on. (2019) could be here. I think it's actually earlier than this. These are the interiors. I like the, so I don't know if you've seen their little courtesy van that they have that has this picture that's on all of their billboards. Those are my nieces. This was probably shot 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, when they were really little. But it's kind of cool what they did to the van, but that's not what I was looking for. It must be a little older than that. If I can't find it, if it's not on this next drive, then we'll move on. But a lot of this stuff, when I shoot these things, I really, really have to be careful about when I do them. Aquatic Center. Yeah, this is it. So, we have these shots that we did during the daylight, obviously. This looks like early fall or something. And then they wanted shots. This little area that's in the foreground here is a barbecue area, and then there's a waterfall on the other side. This is all below the Aquatic Center. And so we shot a lot of this stuff like, late afternoon and so forth. But the shot that I'm really looking at, we have a couple that we did. This was for the banner on their website around a fire pit. You can see that I'm obviously using supplemental lighting here. This isn't just what's there. Those strong lights that are coming from the left and the right have been added. But this is the one. If you look at this, and I actually left one of my light sources in the picture. That bright light in the middle is actually a flash on a stand in the background there that's creating those shadows coming forward. But the key here is the sky. If I'd shot this literally 10 minutes later, that sky would have been black. And not only would there have been no detail there, we would have lost the contrast, the color contrast that we have. So the warm tones in the building contrasted against the cool tones of the sky makes it a little bit more interesting. And then of course that's mirrored in the warm tones with the fire pit in the foreground. If I'd done it 10 minutes earlier, the sky would have been too bright. If I'd have done it 10 minutes later, the sky would have been too dark. So a lot of the stuff that we shoot for clients like that, it's very, very important when, that time of day. Let me get back to where we were. Yep, right here. All right, so I still think your nighttime shots, the better of the two. Oh, we already put that in there. Okay. So let's move to Samantha. And I did see these. So we have, looking at your titles, we have a big light and a little light. So we're just going to go down through in order here by file name. This is Big Light 3. Oops, no, I'm sorry. Let's start at the top. Big light. So what is your big light?
My big light is like the standard living room on top of the ceiling light. So
Okay.
a bigger one.
So when you go from big light 1, 2, and 3, what's the difference between them?
It was just me playing with the settings because I just got my camera.
Gotcha.
So, and I love them all, so I couldn't pick just one. So
well, let me look at your metadata and see what you've got here. Well, that is the best exposure of the bunch, and your ISO's up a little bit. So I'll make a comment to you. Let's look at the other ones here. So your aperture is either f8 or f10 in all of them, and you probably could have helped yourself a little bit. And again, I don't know what the maximum aperture, but it looks like it's 3.5. Whoops, didn't mean to open that. And I don't know if it's a floating. Shoot, sorry, I'm trying to get, there we go. Yeah, your maximum aperture is 3.5 and you shot this at f8. I probably, it probably didn't need to be f8, f5, 6, or even 4 would have been fine. And that would have given you, you could have brought the ISO down a little bit and still had the exposure where you wanted. And the reason is, there's not a lot of depth here. Like from that pillow in the front to the couch in the back is a distance of what, 3-4 inches probably. So yeah, there's not a lot. You don't have to worry about depth of field and keeping a lot in focus. You can actually use a shallower depth of field and get those other numbers a little closer. This one's a little bit underexposed, and it's the ISO is a little bit lower on that one. Yeah, I can see what you were bouncing back and forth from, but this is the best of those three. And then it says flash, little light, and little light. Oh, is flash and a little light? Is that what it is? You're muted. You're still muted. There we go.
It was automatic. The flash popped
Oh,
up.
I gotcha.
But I liked how it bounced off his fur. Like he has a texture, so I kept it.
And then this is, what is your little light?
It's like it's the standard office light that's like tall and high, so it's in the corner of the room. Gotcha.
So I actually like almost like those lights, because again, the on-camera flash is just a little, to me, it's a little ordinary, and it doesn't quite create the texture that I want to see. And even though that one's a little bit overexposed and the rest of these are a little bit underexposed, but because that light's coming from an angle, because it's coming from camera right, that's what, and it rakes across his fur. And even though it's a little bit warm, you know, we could have white balanced this probably and gotten the color back a little bit better. But I like the direction that it's coming from because of the fact that he is so textured and he does have all this fur, and it looks better, you know, when it's lit that way than when it's lit this way, because it kind of flattens everything out.
Yeah, but I kept it just for contrast of the class, you know.
Right.
It was kind of cool, but I do like these warm colors because that's what the lamp is. It's kind of like a warm color, has a shade, you know, it's not white. So that was kind of cool.
So yeah, I'm looking, if we compare the two, the big light and the little light, the big light shot is a good exposure. It's a good photo. I mean, everything technically is good. It just doesn't give us the same, if you look at his face, it doesn't give us the same texture. What would have been really good, really great, would have been a little more ambient light, because the shadow side of his face there is going, and shadow side of his body is going a little dark. So actually the best shot would have been like right between these two. It would have been, you know, a little bit more fill from the front and still keeping that strong light from the side with all the texture on the fur and everything. But I think even still, I still like that that little light shot the best. And I think I like.
I like the little lights because his fur is like a brown, so it made it a yellow. You know, it's more cozy, I guess you would say, because he is a teddy bear.
And I like seeing his foot or his feet in this one, so I probably would go with that. I think that's probably his. That one's my favorite. That's his finest moment right there.
Later in some of them, you can see he got a little tired and dropped his head.
Yeah, slumped over a little bit. Or was that the photographer that slumped a little bit? I don't know. So, and this is kind of more along the lines of what I wanted, or what not what I wanted, because I knew a lot of you would do the outdoor shot, you know, the way you did, but I wanted to see those of you that did the indoor shots like this. I wanted to see the variations you came up with. And this one shows a great deal of variation between the front lit and the side lit. So definitely one of the things I wanted you guys to see. All right. And I don't know, Sammy's not here, I don't believe. Oop, I think Hannah got knocked off again. Let me see if I can get her back. There we go. Okay. So she's not here. Am I right? I'm just looking at the list. No, I didn't think she'd be here today. So her shots, we are going to look at them. I'm not sure why I didn't look at the metadata, why this one is so underexposed. Well, yeah, if I look at the settings, this one is correct as far as, all three working together. And then these numbers are just like F11, 320, and it's actually a -3 stop exposure compensation. So I'm really not sure what happened here. It almost looks to me like the lighting is the same and all she did was change the camera settings to underexpose. I'm not sure why. I think she might have kind of missed that a little bit. I actually think I have a record player that looks just like that, by the way. I do not have the Beach Boys album though. So yeah, I can't really ask her questions because she's not here. But I think that's what it looks like to me, is that the lighting, because I'm looking at the shadows, maybe it is a little different. There's a little bit more of a harsh shadow inside the box there than there is here. But the exposure just wasn't nailed. So it's really hard to compare.
It looks to me that she just like maybe turned off the light and used the window lighting.
Yeah, and then just didn't get the exposure up to where it should have been. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to compare because of that. So we'll just kind of move on. And Savannah got back just in time because her images are up next. So these two, and I don't know if there was any text that came with these. I don't remember. Is this a blacklight poster? Is that what we're looking at?
It's actually a t-shirt and I cropped it out to make it look like a poster. And I have LED lights and it just looked, I was actually photographing something else and I was over by my closet and I saw this and it looked cool. So I decided to do this instead.
Yeah. And so this is, again, like we had one earlier, this is a different take on, kind of where I was headed with the assignment, but it is interesting. And I like the thought process behind it, where the lighting itself doesn't change, only the color of the light change, but it does have a very different reaction on the subject matter. So that's kind of interesting that you recognize that. And it does make for, a pretty cool look. Then it does have a look of almost like a blacklight poster. Which of the two do you like better?
I kind of like the second one where it's like kind of darker.
The deeper blues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little more unique, a little more eye-catching. So you did what I asked, but just in a different way. And like I said, that's what's interesting to me, is to see how you guys all interpret it a little bit differently. Nothing wrong with what you did. I like the fact that you recognized what was happening with the LEDs. What was the subject you were trying to photograph before you saw this?
So basically the same thing happened. I was just sitting here thinking of something and I have a few pops, like Funko Pops on my desk. And one of them is an anime character called Endeavor. And the same light that this one caught onto, it was like, I don't know, it made the yellow in his flames like neon. I should have put it in there too, but I just decided to go with this one.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting what those LEDs do. It's funny. I told you I've got, like, the bedroom is full of them, but what's interesting about it is that I have some canvas prints that I made. My bedroom is all, it's all Bermuda themed. All the photos in there are from Bermuda, and the decor and everything is Bermuda. And those LEDs at night actually light up certain areas of those prints, like the lighter areas. Like there's a panorama of a place called Tobacco Bay, which has the teal blue water and everything. And that bay just lights up under those lights at night. So it's kind of cool. The LEDs have some unintended consequences sometimes, and it's neat to recognize that. All right, Sierra is up next. Oh, I remember I like these. So we've got some pencils. So first of all, I like, right off the bat, I like a couple things even about this shot. And I know the other one is a little more dramatic, but I like the fact that you've got this subject that is so popping off of this background. The background is a little darker. It's definitely more out of focus, and all of those things tend to make this stand out a little bit more. So I'll make a couple negative comments to you once we look at both of these, but overall, I like what you did. So tell me how you achieved the second one.
So the second one, I used a little Baby Yoda LED light that I have in my room that I put behind it, and then the front light is just from the window.
This one is just light from the window, you said?
No, the front light.
Oh, the front of this. Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay, I see the reflection in the
yeah.
front of the cup. So yeah, I love the color what this did. I like the fact that even though the pencils are not as prominent, the overall shot is a little more dramatic. And by the way, everybody, oh, Hannah keeps getting knocked out. I say the same thing. I say Baby Yoda, and it's really not Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Does everybody know that? Do you know what his name is?
I can't pronounce it, but I know Baby Yoda's not his name.
Yeah, it's actually, his name's Grogu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I thought the whole first season, I thought it was Baby Yoda. And then I found out that it wasn't. So I felt, anyway. So the negative things that I'll mention to you. In this one, I would rather have either seen the whole cup the way you have it in this one. I like the composition here because of the fact that it is, it kind of lends itself to a vertical composition. This one just feels cut off to me. I'd either want to see the whole cup in a vertical composition the way the other one was, or go really, really tight just on the pencils and eliminate most of that cup. Compositionally, I think this one just has a couple challenges, even though I do really like some of the things you did with it. But overall, this is a really cool image, really well done. One of my favorites this week. Anytime that you take unusual lighting and creates a mood with something, I'm going to like it. And I also like the little reflection that you got. There's a minor thing, which I don't think we could have done much about. The what I'm seeing through the handle, is that like the base of the light? Is that
that's his little stand.
Yeah, so short of actually cloning that out, there's not much you could have done about it, but it is just be aware that it's a little bit of a distraction. I'm not sure if moving the camera angle would have taken enough of that out, or if it would have introduced it on the other side. It's hard to say. It's a minor thing because overall it's a pretty good shot. And I didn't look at your metadata. Oh, not bad. That's it must be a pretty bright light, actually. Or no, that's a 1.6 second exposure. Wow, so that was a long exposure. Was your camera had to be sitting on something, right? You didn't hand hold that.
No, I had used a tripod.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no way you would have been that sharp at 1.6 seconds. So yeah, great use of a tripod too. Then, good job. All right, Zach's up last. So first thing I want is an explanation of the titles. This one is titled Lust. And I know what it is, I think, but I want to hear your take on it.
Okay. So I named, well, I mean, first of all, I just thought it was funny because it's such a cute picture and giving it a name like that. But like it more has to do with the second picture, like the background in the second picture.
Hang on, let me
Like
get there.
I just made up like a little.
Yeah,
like
I can see the notepad just well enough. I want to cuddle. I love Foxy something.
it's supposed to be ladies, but like, and then in the back, like you can hardly see it at all, but like the llama and and the fox are like in the back together. That was supposed to be.
They just didn't record quite as well with the lighting. Yeah, it would have taken either a longer shutter speed or a little more ISO to bring that out. So it's funny that so llamas have taken on this thing in the last, what, I don't know, year. You're seeing llamas everywhere, right? They're in posters, they're in pictures, they're all over the internet. And the weird thing is that I did a presentation at a board meeting. Whoa, somebody needs to mute.
Hannah, turn your
Is
mic
ravioli
on.
okay for dinner? Yes, okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure who that is, but somebody needs
No, it's Hannah.
Hannah, okay. Yeah, mute. There you go. So anyway, I did this presentation at a board meeting in Atlanta before the whole llama thing took off. And I don't have it here. It used to hang in this closet. I was going to show you. So I did this presentation, and throughout the presentation, which was a fairly boring presentation, like the subject matter was just not anything that exciting, and I had to find a way to make it exciting. So throughout the presentation, I made references to llamas just over and over again. There was a story about something that happened in Southeast Asia. So at the end of that section, I put a slide that came up and said, by the way, there are no llamas in Southeast Asia. And it just kept going on. And people were like, what the hell is he talking about? Why is he still talking about llamas? The presentation was it was called Flying Through the Flak, which is, in reality, dealt with if you've done any work in history. In World War II, bomber pilots would be on bombing runs, and from the ground, they would be firing at the planes, and they weren't targeted, but these bombs would explode all around them, and you would see the black smoke and everything, and that was called flak. And the bombers used to try to avoid those. And then they found out that since the firing was so random, that they actually had better success just by flying straight through and ignoring it. Fewer of them actually took hits than by trying to avoid it. So the analogy was that sometimes you just want to fly straight through the flak. You want to ignore distractions. You want to ignore naysayers and things like that. If you feel that you are correct, then stay the course, regardless of what people say. And in the end, you're generally going to win out. That's what the presentation was about. And so when I got to the end, finally, I'm trying to remember how I tied it all together. It was about staying the course. And sometimes when you make a decision that you feel is right, even when you do it months before, and as I was saying this, I'm unbuttoning my shirt. and one of the women on the board, as I'm doing that, she's like, think about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing. She had no idea what I was doing. And as I was speaking, I said that, you really need to trust yourself. If you've made a good decision, stick with it. And as I unbuttoned my shirt, I opened and I had a custom t-shirt made with a picture of a llama on it. And it said, avoid the llama, stay the course. And so, of course, to this day, it's like I am synonymous with llamas. And it's just funny that literally within a month after that presentation, they started popping up everywhere. So that has nothing to do with anything other than I don't know who it was that started marketing llamas, but what a coincidence that was. I mean, literally, it was probably a few weeks after that they started showing up. So anyway, tell me, I'm just curious, like you've got all these elements in this image, like the honey roasted cashews. There's got to be a reason they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of had them there. Like I just had fun with it. Like the llama was supposed to be like eating them as a snack while she was getting like her fur combed by the goat.
I didn't even notice that that was a comb. Now I see it. Oh
Yeah, very dark. Yeah, but that's what's going on. He's just having a snack.
Yeah, and now I see the fur like up in the teeth of the comb and everything. That's cool. And so the others, the raccoon and whatever that is in the foreground, look like they're playing tic-tac-toe.
Yes.
Like you have a lot of stuff, really weird stuff going on here. But I love that. Like and I even in this shot, I like the lighting. The primary lighting is coming from almost above and behind and off to the side, which creates all that texture. The what is that, a sheep or whatever it is? That's, what'd you say, goat?
Yeah, I think it's a goat.
A goat. Well, he's kind of looking in the direction of that light, so he's lit. I mean, it's just the only thing that I thought I would change would be the bedspread or whatever they're on being a little busy and a little distracting. But then I thought, no, because that kind of fits the whole mood of this being just such a weird picture. And even the color in the cashew can kind of is picked up in the greens of that. And then the oranges are mimicked in some of the other items. So I don't think I would change it. I think this one, if the exposure was up a little bit on this, I think I would like this even way better. I think I would like it better than the other image. But I think probably because the exposure makes this a little tough to really see what's going on. This one I just think it's hilarious. So I'm going to throw that in the folder. All right, guys. So let's take a quick, and it's kind of funny because, we don't really have, I got to make sure I get all of you in here. We don't really have, wasn't really a creative exercise, but we still came up with a couple of creative shots. I see three two especially that I think are really, really well done. So let's just kind of do a show of hands here quickly. We'll vote on these. We're going to start with the nighttime shot at the dam. And if you either get your camera on or use your thumbs up to vote as we go through. Okay, so that one is first. Then we're going to go to Lust, which was the last image we just looked at. Heck, I got to vote for that one. Then we've got the sunset trees. Okay, the t-shirt. All right, Ross, you might want to put there you go, thank you. The bear. Gotcha. Neon Dino. Dino, I can't remember if you said Dino or Dino. All right, then the outside, the dorm room snowstorm. Marvin. Okay. The backlit pencils. The tarot cards. Clock tower. And the Highlands. So I'm not sure. I think we might have had a tie between Lust and the Neon Dino. Dino. We're going to call him Dino. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to vote again. And regardless of the way you voted the first time, you need to vote again. So let's see hands for Lust. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope, 5. And then Neon Dino. 1, 2, 3. You know what? Doesn't matter. They both tied again. So those two are going to get a point. And I'm also awarding one. Where's it at here? I think the pencils, I think that was just very well done, very creative. So I'm gonna give all three of those. So these are your three winners for the week. Ta-da! Well done, guys. Let me mark these on here before I forget. All right, so I'm going to turn turn that off just for a second so I can figure out who's who here. So Zach, I know, has that one. Then I've already forgotten who the pencils. Who did the pencils?
That was my picture.
It was later. Sierra, gotcha. Okay, I knew it was later on. And then what's the other one I'm looking for? The Dino. Who did Dino?
That was me.
Brooke. All right, gotcha. All right, cool. All right, so we got all that recorded. So we've got, we're probably going to spend about a half an hour here and talk about some lighting things. Let me stop sharing that and we'll go back to this. We're going to look at, and I know we looked first week, I think we went through a little presentation. I think we did with some lighting stuff, but I want to talk about it again. I want to go through a little bit more of this with a little more detail this time. So let me share that screen. Okay, so when we talk about light quality, and I know, again, I think we talked about this. Again, I have two classes, so I'm not sure who I talked what about. But light quality, when I talk about the quality of light, it is about the relationship of the size of that light to the subject. The larger the light is in relationship to the subject, the softer it's going to be, the more forgiving it's going to be. And that doesn't necessarily mean flat. Flat generally means that light is coming from the camera position, but it can be very soft and off camera and still be directional. And we'll look at some examples that'll show you that. The direction, it must have direction in order to create shadows in order to show 3 dimensions. And that's the idea behind lighting. Without shadows, if everything's flat, we're in 2 dimensions. We don't know how big anything is. We don't know how far away things are. The inverse square law is not something that you need to learn exactly. You just need to know basically what it says, and that is that light falls off very, very quickly. And I'm going to show you the graph here. So if we have this light source, and we're just going to kind of arbitrarily assign numbers here, if we say 1 foot away from that light source, we have a value of 1. You know, if we're getting the full output of that light at 1 foot away. When we go 2 feet away, your thought process would be, well, then we've cut the light in half. When in reality, we've cut it by 3/4. We are now 1/4 of the original output. So you can see that how fast it goes. If we go 3 feet away, now we're at only 1/16 of what the intensity of that light is at 1 foot away. And you can see how those numbers increase as we go down to the point where when you get 10 feet away, there's almost no light recorded there at all. Not that there isn't light on it, but the ratio of the intensity between 1 foot and 10 foot is so great that if you expose your camera for what is at 1 foot from that light, then whatever is 10 feet away from the light is going to be basically black. For example, if I'm in my studio and I'm shooting on a piece of white seamless paper, if that's my background, and I set my lighting up this way, and I set up the light so that it's only 1 foot away from my subject, but the background is 10 feet behind the subject, that white seamless paper is going to record as either a very dark gray or even black. And it's just because there's not enough light hitting it because of how fast it falls off. And that's really all you need to know about it. The numbers are important. There will be a question on the test that asks you something about that as far as how that falls off. And I think the thing to remember is that just remember that first section there, that when we go from 1 foot to 2 feet, we don't cut it in half. We actually cut it to a quarter. That's the part I want you to remember. So let's look at a few things. Again, we talked about good lighting is designed to show 3 dimensions in a 2-dimensional medium. If you look at this shot, we see that we've got light coming from a number of different directions, and they're all there for a reason. We've got light from overhead lighting his hair a little bit. We've got a main light that is off to the right, which you can actually see a reflection in his eyes of that main light. It's a 4x6 softbox. There's a kicker light in the back left corner because as his face goes into shadow, I don't want that to just go black. So I put something back there to keep that lit up. There's actually more lights than that on the shot, but that's all we're going to really talk about. So harder light produces harsher shadows and soft light produces soft shadows. So you can see the image on the right is what I call a hard light source because it creates these very defined, very sharp shadows. It's actually more of a spotlight. The one on the left, even though the light might be the same distance from this guy, it's a much softer light because the size of the light is much larger. And that's the reason for that. So just keep that in mind, that a smaller light source is going to always create these defined shadows, whereas a larger light source is going to create much softer shadows. That's kind of in here for a different reason. We'll skip over that. Both of these are soft light sources, but the one of the violinist on the right, that light is actually at 90 degrees to the camera. So if the camera's here, the subject is in front of me, that light is, if you come around and think of it as a 360-degree circle, that light is 90 degrees from the camera position over here, facing right in at the subject. And that's why we get his face lit. But as it goes back, his cheekbones, from that area back, starts to fall into shadow. So we have a kicker light behind that to keep that from going completely dark. So outdoor lighting, and this is what most of you will be working with for a large portion of this, it's the same thing. We're looking for the same things, but you have to be aware that it can be much more subtle. If you look at this shot, you do see a shadow under his chin. It's not overly sharp. So we kind of get an idea for the direction and the size of that light source. 2 different things going on here. The first shot on the left, that light is being filtered through those columns, but it's not direct. She's not being hit by direct sunlight. If you look where she's standing, she's intentionally in a shadowed area as opposed to the columns behind her, which have direct sunlight coming in. I didn't want direct sunlight on her. I wanted a soft light on her face. So I put her in the shadows, and the intensity of the light out there is still much greater than where she's standing, but it's softer because now we're looking at light coming through clouds, and clouds act as a great diffuser. The one on the right is actually kind of similar, but there's a little more direct sunlight coming through, both on her knees and on her face, but still we have some soft light on the face. Most of the light. So again, this is the sky. The sun was setting in the background. So you can see that's where the light's coming from. And you can see that reflected on the far side of his face, but it's coming through clouds. So it's not creating harsh shadows. It's softening it. Clouds are, like I said, a great diffuser. If I have a very small light source, if I have, if I don't know if this is plugged in, I have a desk lamp, okay? Desk lamp with a light bulb in it like this is going to be basically a very hard light source because it's a small light. And if I have it close enough to the subject to actually light them up, it's going to create some pretty harsh shadows. What can I do? Can you think of anything I could do to soften that light?
Move the lamp back.
So if you move the lamp back, it'll do 2 things. It decreases the intensity, but it actually makes it a harder light source because guess what? Remember that the softness of the light is determined by the size of the light source in relationship to the subject. So if I move it further away, it becomes an even smaller light source. If I moved it further away and actually increase the output, it would actually create harsher shadows. But I want to create softer shadows. So what do you think I might do? You ever seen anything like this? So this is a translucent, it actually is a reflector if I have the covering on it. But right now you can kind of see my hand through it because this is a translucent panel. So if I place this between the light source and the subject, the size of the light source now becomes this instead of what it is actually. That light bulb, if it's strong enough to actually go through this and create light, it increases the size of the light source to this. So I can keep my light source where it is, just move this close to the subject and it softens it. So outside, how do you think that I might use this outside?
With like the sun.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can't move the sun, right? Can't change its size. And I don't care how far I move my subject away. It's not going to change the intensity. You know, at 93 million miles, 6 feet's not going to make much difference. But what I can do is increase the effective size of that light source by placing something like that in between. Now, if you don't have a reflector like this or a translucent panel, you can use all kinds of stuff, a bed sheet, a pillowcase, you know, as long as they're thin enough to allow light to go through, anything like that will work. Tissue paper, you know, a t-shirt. I mean, depending on the size of your light source and your subject, all of that stuff will work as long as it's bright enough to go through it and it increases the size of that light source. It'll create a much, much softer light. So here we have, both of these are direct sunlight, but we have enough fill light coming from different things to light up the shadow side of the face. Same thing here. You can obviously, we've got direct sunlight, but that concrete is actually acting as a reflector and kicking the sunlight back up into his face. So the shadow side of his face isn't going completely dark. Now here's two completely different looks. The right image is direct sunlight. It's hitting directly on her. And she's turned into it, because if I don't turn her into it, her nose is going to create this really ugly shadow on the side of her face. So we turn the face into the light so that it lights up the face. And we've got this effect going on, you know, on the leaves and on the shadows on the wall that are creating these angles and so forth. And we've even angled the camera to kind of accentuate that a little bit. It is a harsh light. It is hard to photograph somebody looking into that. You can see she's squinting a little bit. But it does create still a pleasing light as long as you face your subject into that light. The image on the left is also, believe it or not, direct sunlight, but it's being filtered. She's inside a white gazebo. So even though there's bright sunlight outside that gazebo, the only thing that's coming through, it's not the sunlight itself. It's just the light that's out there filtering through the opening in that gazebo. And it creates this really soft pattern. The other thing that it does, because of the fact that she's inside there, it's a little dimmer inside the gazebo than it is out on the river. So I have to raise the exposure on her to get her to record properly. And what that does is it overexposes the background. And that's an intentional effect. I wanted to create this high key effect, this high key look where everything was very white and bright because of her clothing. I wanted her skin tone and her hair and her belt to set off from that and be contrast. So we put her in an area that's a little dimmer, raise the exposure, blow out the background, and still create a nice soft light on her. These are both direct sunlight, but again, used with the subject facing into the light so that, you know, the shadows aren't being created by the nose, or if they are, there's enough fill light there taking care of it. The violinist on the left, this is actually a very classic. Does anybody recognize, if you've had any art classes, there's actually a lighting pattern that's named after a Renaissance painter. Do you know what it is? Anybody heard of it? So this is called Rembrandt lighting. And if you look at Rembrandt's work, you're going to see a lot of this where one side of the face is lit, and on the shadow side of the face, you've got this triangle of light underneath the eye. And it's because of the direction of that light. It's above in about a 45-degree angle coming down, and it's off camera. So it lights one side of the face and a partial cheekbone on the other side in a triangle pattern, and that's called Rembrandt lighting. It's very, very popular. You're going to see it in a lot of photography and, painting as well throughout that era. So direct sunlight on the left, using it almost as a rim light in that case. And the direct sunlight in the right is actually only there lighting up her hair. That's where the sun's coming from. What's lighting her face is somebody standing next to her with something like this and catching that sunlight that's coming in and bouncing it back into her face. So that type of thing, and that reflector, and you can use all sorts of things. One of the most popular reflectors out there is designed by a photographer in, oh God, where's he from? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Fuzzy Dunkel is his name. And he designed this reflector that's made out of a piece of insulation board that you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or anything like that. And it's just this silver reflective side. You have to be careful that it's, can be overly reflective, but that makes a great reflector because it's extremely highly efficient. Let's move on. Where are we at here? Same thing, very direct sunlight, overexposing it a little bit because I wanted the shadows to come in, but again, she's faced and turned into that light. Something a little more complex sometimes would be more of a silhouette like you've got on the left. Again, don't expose for your subject, expose for the background, and let the subject go into this silhouette. To me, the story here isn't so much the couple, it's the expression on the faces in the background. And then the image on the right is similar to that, even though we do have a little bit more detail in them because of the light coming forward. Same thing here. This was probably the best decorating job I've ever seen of Glessner Auditorium. And all I did was use the room lighting, the ambient lighting, but put a small flash on a stand behind them, which is what's creating that rim light around them and creating the shadow coming forward. Just an overhead light, one single light lit that. And this is just two lights actually, kickers from the back corners. So let me stop this. The point that I'm trying to make through all of this is just as far as the quality of light is concerned, it's all about the size of that light source in relationship to the subject. Now, the same light source can be both a hard or a soft source, just depending on how far it is from the subject. So if I've got a light that's, I don't know, let's say it's this big, or even this reflector. If I've got this really close, if I've got light coming through this reflector right now, lighting me up, it's going to be a very soft light. But if I take this thing and I move it 20 feet away, in relationship to me, it's now smaller. And even that same light source is going to create more shadow than it is if it's that close. So those are just some very, very basic principles that I want you to remember. And I want you to demonstrate that for the assignment next week. So what I want you to do, it's very similar to what you did this week with a little twist. I want you to photograph the same subject twice, but once with a hard light source and one with a soft light source. But keep in mind that soft light source and the hard light source can be the same source. You can either change the quality by changing the distance or by changing the effective size by putting something in between it. Also keep in mind that if you go outside and you do a scene with direct sunlight on it, and then you photograph the same scene on a cloudy day, you've got the same thing. You've got a hard light source in one and a soft light source in the other, because clouds are absolutely the best diffuser you can get. It creates the largest light source that there is. If you have a large area of open sky that's all cloudy, the light coming through there can be great. You just want to be careful of where it is. It's still better to be earlier or later in the day because the sun's at a lower angle, so you're going to have a little more direction. Try to figure out, if you do use, anytime you do use outdoor lighting, try to figure out where the sun is. Like if it's really overcast, that sun is still creating a brighter area somewhere in the sky. So try to figure out where that is and use that. Again, don't put that behind you so that your subject is, you know, flat lit by it. If it's over here somewhere above and maybe at a bit of an angle, now you're going to create very soft gradation across a face or a subject or whatever, where one side's lit and then it's slowly going to go in a little bit of shadow, but it's not going to be overstated, but it's enough to still see those 3 dimensions in a 2-dimensional subject. All right, let me quickly review something here to make sure I have covered everything I wanted to. Yeah, I think we did. So I will post that later this evening. And then what we're going to do starting next week, we're going to take 2 or maybe even 3 weeks at least, I think. Yeah, I think probably 3 weeks at least. And we're going to dig into composition. We're going to start looking at all the compositional elements, the major ones anyway. There are 10 or 12 of them. And over that 3-week period or whatever, your assignment will be to create images that that show those compositional elements. So it starts to get a little bit more fun after that, or once we get to that point. We've been very technical so far. This is only what, 1, 2, 3, this is only what, our 4th class, is that right? Yeah, because we did not have, yeah, this is our 4th class, okay. So we're going to have a couple more, maybe a couple more, 1 or 2 more after we do composition that'll be slightly technical, but the assignments will start to get a little bit more fun because we'll be, first of all, we won't have to dig into all the nuts and bolts that we did early on. And also the theme, we'll have a little bit of a theme as we go forward too. So it gets a little bit easier from here. Let me ask if there are any questions at all about the lighting that we talked about. The main thing that I want you to remember, size matters, okay? The size of the light source, relationship to the subject, and fall off, how quickly something falls off, because you can use that. Again, if you're in your dorm room and you want to photograph a small item close up, put a light source relatively close to that item. And everything that's a few feet behind that is going to go dark. You know, it's not going to be a distraction because of how fast that light falls off. If that same light is, you know, back 6 feet, then you're going to light the background or the back wall or whatever as much as you will the subject. So just keep those 2 things in mind, size and fall off, and play with it. See what you come up with. If you have a chance, if you have the time, shoot something early. Think about it for a day, live with it, and then go back and maybe refine that or even try something completely different, and just see if that changes your perspective at all. Anything else, guys? I'm going to let you go about 15 minutes early. If not, nobody's going to be like, I'm not going to be the idiot that raises my hand and everybody hates because I held on any longer. All right. No problem. In 2 days, probably I will post this video as soon as it's actually rendered on YouTube. I'll send out the link and I will post the assignment details tonight. All right. So great job again. Pretty cool images this week, but I think they're going to get a lot better. See y'all soon.